So Conor McGregor has come out and said he wants to fight 3 times in 2020. You have to understand a couple of things with Conor McGregor in all fairness. But if Conor McGregor has proved that he's anything, he's a man of his word, period. If Conor says, I'm going to do so, he just goes out and does it. And so many people say, oh, you can't do that, or you won't do that, or you don't have the courage to do that, or you won't be given the opportunity to do that. If Conor McGregor says he's going to do it, he does it. And you can be a Conor hater or a Conor lover. That's just history. That's just purely a history lesson for you. Now, says he's going to fight 3 times in 2020. That sounds very similar to something John Jones said when he came back against Gustafsson. He said, I want to fight 4 times. In the next 12 months. I want to be the Donald Cerrone of the light heavyweight division. Well, in all fairness, John went out and did his level best to do just that. I mean, he fought Gus. He turned right around and took on Anthony Smith, turned right around and took on Thiago, and he's been looking for an opponent ever since. I mean, in fairness, so now we're starting to see the same thing coming from Conor, maybe for the same reasons. And even though Conor's been out and the reason John were out were not the same reasons, it's still a little similar mindset where you look back and go, man, I got lost time here. I've only got so much time to build memories and to go out and have some of these matches. So, okay, great. Let's take Conor at his word. Who should Conor's 3 fights be? And I think the first question comes to, why is Conor at 170? And this really has to be figured out. School of thought. Most likely school of thought. He's at 170 pounds because it's a different challenge. He's at 170 pounds because that's where the fight was offered to him. He's at 170 pounds because just recently on TMZ, Dana said Conor's too small to fight a 170-pounder, and he wants to come out and show that's not true. Okay, I think that's probably the most likely, but there is another scenario, and it does matter if you're looking at the trajectory of Conor, how he's going to do with Cowboy, but who should he fight next? Is it option 2, which is making 170 is easier? You don't have to work as hard. He's not in as good a shape. He hasn't been training as hard. His body is now bigger than it used to be. That's speculation to the highest of level, and we are going to know before the fight. We're going to know at the weigh-in. When Conor McGregor was fighting at 170 against Nate Diaz, he weighed in at 164 pounds one time. He weighed in 168 pounds for the other fight, but he had a bunch of clothes on. So he basically weighed about 164, 165 pounds. If he fights Cowboy Cerrone and he weighs in about 164 or 65 pounds, we know that he's been training, at least based on that math. We know that he's in shape. We know his speed's going to be the same, at least by those numbers. Now we're going to scratch our head a little bit and have to see where the conditioning is at, but that also comes down to strategy a little bit. But I do think it's very relevant. Why is he at 170 pounds? And Conor hasn't told, I can sit over here and make excuses for him, or I can sit over and prepare for his fall that Cowboy's going to be just too big. Guys, I don't know. I don't know why he's at 170 pounds. But if he's coming back to 170, so now we are to believe that he's in the 170-pound division, it completely changes the parity. I mean, Conor McGregor may be the biggest star in the sport, but he may not. It may be a guy named George Masvidal. I'd love to know what you guys think, but I mean, who are you more excited for, Conor or George? I wouldn't be surprised if Conor won that contest, by the way. You've got supply and demand. We've had a lot of George lately. We haven't had any Conor. So I wouldn't be stunned, but I wouldn't be stunned if you guys all of a sudden are a bunch of Masvidal marks. I mean, this guy, I was at Madison Square Garden. I watched him bring the roof off this place. I watched the stars come out. I watched leaders come out. I watched them tweet and talk about him publicly. This guy's a star. That's just the way that it is. So, is he back for Masvidal? Who I would argue started this whole problem for him in the first place when Dana simply went on TMZ and said George Masvidal's too big for Conor McGregor. Is he back for Nate Diaz? Is he back now projecting Nick Diaz? Is he back looking for George St-Pierre? I don't think Conor's on a title run at 170. Now, I also want to tell you with any level of confidence that he would turn down a title opportunity. I think if there's anything that we can all get on board with and stand back and just concede to, it's that Conor McGregor's got balls, period. That he is not afraid to fight, period. Any weight, any sport, anybody. I feel that he's proved the point. But let's go through who do you want to see him fight? Because don't forget, guys, don't make any mistake. to say he's going to run by Cowboy Cerrone. Cowboy Cerrone's nobody's fool, has never been anybody's fool. That's a hard night out. Let's say Conor loses it. Doesn't mean Conor's done. We still have the question, if he wants to do 3 fights, regardless of outcome, who would the next one be against? In many ways, if Conor had a loss, it would make all the sense that let's just do this Nate Diaz thing. Nate's coming off a loss. There seems to be a history in this business of a guy with a loss takes a guy with a win, takes a guy with a win. I mean, it just seems to go that way. What's the shame in that? Maybe that's the direction he goes. Or maybe you bring Nick Diaz back, and don't forget old Nick's last fight was, I think it was a no contest, but for any of you smart guys come and correct me. But, he didn't get his hand raised against Anderson Silva. That'd be a fair thing to say. I think you have a lot of good options, but I do personally believe, as I've told you before, Conor wants George. That's my own, and I'm talking Masvidal. That's my own personal opinion. But I wouldn't be surprised to see St-Pierre put his nose in the mix. Don't forget, nobody's ever called Conor McGregor out. Now, before you guys go, Chael, what are you talking about? Everybody calls out Conor McGregor. If there's a press conference and there's 10 guys up there, all 10 of them call Conor. Not really. I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know that I have ever seen anybody in front of Conor call him out. I've seen people under Conor try to get in on that. And that's not quite the same thing. If you have somebody with the standing of George St-Pierre whose voice is going to carry an echo, that's not the same call out. That's not I want my opportunity. That's a hey punk. I've heard you running your mouth and the gig is up. So step up or shut up. It's a totally different call out when it comes to from somebody like St-Pierre. And I think in many ways, if you're going to be at 170 and you avoid George Masvidal, which I do not believe Conor will do, but I also think that in many ways is a different call out.